Hello and welcome to Bits Play Games. In this episode, I am just going to go over the Nintendo Direct from last week. I'm just going to kind of go over my highlights and what I'm excited for and what I thought was notable. If I'm missing anything you liked or you thought I should have mentioned, just put that down in the comments and I'll check them out. And if I seem annoyed or that I hate my life, it's because I just recorded this episode and I didn't have my audio. So here we go again. So the direct started off with Pikmin 4. I guess you could say they started it off with a bang. Now, Pikmin's one of those games that I didn't play too much, but from what I've played, it seems like a really fun game. And I think if I give it a chance, I'd probably fall in love with it. I enjoyed what I played. It's definitely a unique game. This trailer shows some gameplay and I think some new enemies. I can't be too sure from not playing too much. But I think new enemies and I think a new Pikmin and some new mechanics. Now, the new Pikmin they announced is the Ice Pikmin. And when you throw the Ice Pikmin at enemies, there's so many of them, and enemies, they'll freeze the enemy. But it's cool because you can throw a whole bunch of them like on a body of water and it will freeze the lake. So I think there's going to be really cool ways you're going to be able to use the Ice Pikmin. And I think that's kind of the draw of these games. It's like a little action puzzler. So I think it just mixes well. I'm excited for it. Another thing they showed is the little dog creature that follows you around. And it looks pretty cool because it looks like it can kind of count as 10 Pikmin, I guess, when you're trying to carry the body of an enemy away, or I guess for resources, or you can ride on its back through water. It looks like there's definitely going to be some pretty cool ways you can use this, I guess, dog creature. One other thing I saw in this trailer that I think is new is like the night mode. I'm sure there's parts in the other games where you're walking around at night, but it had one of the creature's eyes turn red, so it looks like it's gonna be a kind of like a blood moon situation from Breath of the Wild, where maybe the enemies get harder or they're a little bit like rabid at night. And they showed some footage of a boss fight, and from what I remember from Pikmin 3, some of the boss fights I did, they were just really cool, and it's just really creative ways how you have to go through and beat the bosses. So the boss shown in this trailer is kind of like, it looks like a disco ball with legs. It looks pretty cool. I'm pretty excited to see how that's going to work, but this game comes out in July. I'm pretty excited to try it, and I think I might like Pikmin after playing it. I might go back to the other ones. So then we got some Xenoblade Chronicles 3 DLC. Um, I, Xenoblade is one of those games where I love RPGs, and Xenoblade just seems like an RPG that I would love. I've always wanted to play the first one. I just heard great things about it. It originally came out on the Wii. I never got to it. I thought about getting it on the new 3DS, never happened. And now they have a definitive version on the Switch. So I can play all three on the Switch now. And it looks like if I start working through them, by the time I get to 3, all the DLC is probably going to be out. And from the looks of it, it looks fun. The DLC looks fun. I mean, you get some, I guess, like items and different stuff like that, and different challenges. So if you like Xenoblade, I'm sure you're happy about more DLC and more Xenoblade to play. And it looks like there's a little bit of story added with it too. So, I mean, more story content's always fun as well. So, Samba de Amigo Party Central. When I first saw this game, I was like, I know this from somewhere. And yes, that monkey with the maracas, I remember one of these games out on the Dreamcast when I was growing up, and it was like this game, or one of these games, was always on promotional material, and it just has Sega vibes. Like, like Sega kind of had that like really arcadey vibe, I'd say, with like some of their games, especially back then. And I love that. This game looks fun. It looks like a rhythm party game, and I love the rhythm mini games in Super Mario Party. So this one looks like it could be a lot of fun if you get a group of people together. And I think they have some online modes too. So depending on how much it is, I may get it on launch, but I might wait for a sale as well. But if you play it when it comes out and you like it, let me know in the comments, and maybe I'll check it out a little sooner than later. So then there was a Dead Cells announcement for Return to Castlevania DLC. This looks pretty cool. I like the Castlevania games. In Dead Cell, I played a few times. It's like a roguelike, so like every time you're playing, the level kind of changes. And just the gameplay was solid though. I love the gameplay. I didn't play it like too much. It was pretty difficult. I mean, Castlevania games are notoriously difficult, so I think it's a match made in heaven. I think it's definitely going to be one. I think it just fits together. And the Castlevania setting, I think I'm definitely going to have to check this out. I kind of hope it's on Game Pass or something when it comes out, but I guess we're just going to have to see. We got an announcement for a new game called Deca Police, correct me with however you're supposed to say it. Yeah, it looks like a detective game. The graphics are really good. It almost like doesn't look like a Switch game, which probably means it's going to be multi-platform. But it looks pretty cool. The gameplay is a little hard to explain. It looks like you go out and try to solve crimes or whatever, and you have this virtual world you have access to kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together, and it's very futuristic looking. So if you like that kind of futuristic cyberpunk kind of feel, maybe it's not cyberpunk necessarily, but it's definitely like futuristic. But yeah, the gameplay, the combat looks pretty cool. It's like RPG-ish. I'd have to look more into it, and hopefully once we see more footage, we'll kind of see more about the gameplay. I think there's definitely more to see with that. But the characters look, they look weird and everything like that, and they have definitely some interesting characters. So it seems like one that I'm at least going to enjoy. If you're interested in it, you have to let me know how it is. Yeah, this game, it looks fun. I definitely might try this out. Now, Bayonetta Origins, Cereza and the Lost Demon. I am a Bayonetta fan. I beat Bayonetta 1 and 2. Unfortunately, I never got to Bayonetta 3. It's just one of those things. Like, I feel like when the mood strikes for that type of game, I'm going to get it. But I haven't yet. I heard it's good. But this game is a prequel, and it has a different art style, and it's definitely not the Bayonetta combat, because Bayonetta is really not the one-woman army she is in the other game. She kind of is a support to her demon who does all the legwork, I guess. But it looks like you can cast spells as Bayonetta, and you're really trying to protect the demon and like buff the demon and kind of, work with combos when the demon's attacking the enemies. So it's definitely a different approach than Bayonetta is. I think it's a game that is probably trying to pull a different audience to Bayonetta, and hopefully it works, because Bayonetta deserves a lot more love than she gets. The games are great, and this one looks different, but it looks fun. I'm excited to try it out. So let's talk about the Splatoon 3 Wave 1 paid DLC. Now, yeah, pretty much Wave 1 is a reskin of the hub area. It makes it Inkopolis, or you can go to Inkopolis, I guess, and you have all the characters from Inkopolis. You have the Squid Sisters, you have stuff like that, and you can go there for the Splatfest, which is cool. And it's cool, don't get me wrong, but for paid DLC, they even said the items are the same and everything's the same when you're there. You don't get anything different. So like paid DLC, I don't know. To me, it's just why? Like, it's cool, but like, I don't know if it's justified for paid DLC. I think the second part with the Wave 2 of the DLC looks like it's a story mode or a story expansion. So that's going to have to be pretty good for me to justify paying to get this DLC expansion. I think the second wave, they showed a little trailer. It's very cryptic. It's very it's a very coral and white kind of atmosphere and setting. which I think is pretty cool because if you're shooting the ink, it's, it's gonna just be a pretty cool effect. But obviously, I don't know how it's gonna go down. I don't know how the story expansion is gonna go. I don't even know if it is a story expansion, but it almost has to be if like this first DLC part of the DLC is just cosmetic, pretty much. But yeah, that's the DLC for the paid DLC for Splatoon. Hopefully we can expect more from we'll probably expect more from the free updates, to be honest, but yep. Let me know if you're going to check it out. I don't know. I might. I mean, but I don't have a huge connection with Inkopolis where I almost like have to get it. There was some Fire Emblem Engage expansion pass, Wave 2 DLC information. And I know I sound disappointed saying, it's not like I'm disappointed. I just haven't got the game yet. So it's like, I didn't even dive into the main game, which is like a good amount of content. I didn't even beat Three Houses. I need to really finish that. But I am excited to get and play Engage because from what I hear, it kind of goes back to the more traditional story structure and stuff like that, where you kind of just get into the action, which is something Three Houses for me, it just didn't do it for me. Like, I know a lot of people like the school setting and RPG elements from in there, but for me, I just like to get into the action. I'm impatient. I just want to like hurry up and customize. I want to get into the fight and do the strategy game, not like the sim. I know a lot of people don't agree with that, but that's kind of how I am. I'm excited to try Engage, and I guess when I get to it, there's going to be more content available, so that is pretty cool. So then we got Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe. I played and have some of the 2D Kirby's on the Switch, and they're a little too easy for me, but recently I've been playing Kirby Dreamland on the Game Boy, and that one's a little bit more difficult. It's not like super hard, but it's hard enough to where it's fun to play for me. And I know this game, Return to Dreamland, originally came out on the Wii. I don't know too much about the difficulty. I assume it's probably a little bit more challenging than the ones on the Switch. And they added a new story kind of expansion to it called I think it's called Magolor's Quest, where Magolor gets stuck between dimensions, loses all of his powers, and you go through and you have to recollect his powers, and I guess you can unlock them in the order you want and upgrade them in the order you want. So it kind of has some RPG elements, which I think is pretty cool. And it has 4-player co-op, so it is cool to see that they're adding more than just a facelift with the visuals for this game. I'm probably going to end up checking it out because me and my wife like playing games like this, so I'll let you know what I think once I give it a try. So we finally get to where it really picks up content-wise. Only 27 minutes in. But when that Game Boy dropped down, I was like instantly negative. I was like, here we go. They're only going to announce Game Boy games. They're not going to even have Game Boy Color. And we're going to have to wait 3 months or a year for Game Boy Color games. And then another year for Game Boy Advance games. I was just like, Nintendo has just worn me down. But as it kind of started going through the Game Boy games, I saw Link's Awakening DX. I'm like looking for colors. I'm like making sure there's color. I'm like, oh, there are Game Boy Color games. And then they showed another Game Boy Color game. And I'm like, oh yeah, Nintendo looks at Game Boy and Game Boy Color as the same system. How can I forget? Well, I mean, they're not, but they say it is. I don't think anyone agrees with them. But yeah, they showed some game announcements for the Game Boy that are, for when it launches. The starting lineup for the Game Boy includes Tetris, Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins, The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening DX, Gargoyle's Quest, Game & Watch Gallery 3, Alone in the Dark, The New Nightmare, Metroid 2, Return of Samus, Wario Land 3, and Kirby's Dream Land. I think that's a pretty solid lineup. I've actually been playing Super Mario Land 2 like crazy. I have 4 out of the 6 golden coins. I've also restarted Link's Awakening, which I've beat that game multiple times. I have the remake on the Switch. I'm still playing it. It's my feel-good game. And I'm just having a blast. Like, these games were made for on the go, and having it on the Switch, it's just like these little bite-sized sessions you can do. It's just so fun. And then they added these little filters you can do for the Game Boy, where you can make it look like the original Game Boy, the Game Boy Pocket, and the Game Boy Color filters, like the the default filters that make it look pretty decent. They also have this thing. It's called Enable. It's like, I can't think of what it's called, but it's Reproduce Classic Fill. I think that's what it's called, and it makes the screen kind of, it has like the checkerboard kind of look, where it's like you're looking at a Game Boy screen. And I know a lot of people are like indifferent about it. They're like, oh, like that's cool, but I don't have it on. I am guilty of toggling that on pretty often. I don't know. It really just brings me back, and I think it looks pretty cool. I mean, that's how I played these games growing up. But yeah, I mean, the lineup's pretty solid. I'm excited to play, and obviously online multiplayer, local multiplayer. I think up to 2 players for the Game Boy and Game Boy Color. I'm pretty excited. And then the screen goes black, and you're like, what's going on? You know, they do this. They have that little dramatic pause, and then the Game Boy Advance pops up. And yeah, like, I think everyone kind of knew that it was like, okay, this is going to be the expansion pack stuff, like, only, which I think's a good thing. I think, like, I'm all for that. I have the expansion pack anyway. I'll take all the systems. But they started going through their games announced for the Game Boy Advance for the starting lineup. So the starting lineup for the Game Boy Advance are Super Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Brothers 3. That's one game. I know the titles for the Game Boy Advance Mario games are weird. And then you have WarioWare Inc. Mega Micro Games, Kurukurukurin, which I've never played, and I probably pronounced that horribly. Mario Kart Super Circuit, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, and The Legend of Zelda Minish Cap. Now, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga and Minish Cap are 2 games I've played, never beat, so I can't wait to really dive into those after I'm done with the Game Boy games, which I've just been face in the screen with. There's other games that are kind of announced for both systems, for the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance. On the Game Boy, the only 2 that I just like, the only ones I could see were the Oracle of Season and Ages games. I can't wait to play those, but they're announced for the future, so I'm really excited about that. In Game Boy Advance, pretty much the Golden Sun and Fire Emblem are the 2 that I can't wait for. A lot of people were kind of confused why no Pokemon games were announced, but you know the Pokemon company is going to want that for themselves, and hopefully we get those soon, because that's going to be, I think that's, people are going to go crazy playing those again, being able to like trade and play each other like online. And I think something that's not really talked about that much is the multiplayer. Now, the multiplayer on the N64, when you're playing with, 2-4 people, it does the split screen because it reproduces like exactly how it would have looked. So you can screen peek and whatever. But if you're playing in handheld mode, it's kind of like, it's hard to see. But with the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance, like, everyone had their own screen. So it's going to be a lot more of a pleasant experience, I think, when you're playing online with people. And I think that's going to, a lot of people are going to probably enjoy it a lot more doing it that way. So then we get what most people would say was the biggest announcement of the day, and that was Metroid Prime Remastered. Now, Metroid Prime Remastered was rumored for a long time, and they kind of just nonchalantly dropped it. It was just like, here it is, and it looks amazing. Like, the graphics, they did such a good job with like the retexturing and all that. They added dual stick analog like controls, which I'm excited about because I tried to play this game on the Wii Trilogy and I just kind of got motion sick. I don't know why, so I couldn't really play that far into it. So I'm glad my first true experience playing through this game is going to be on the Switch, and everybody apparently loves this version. It has like a 96 on Metacritic, so I am beyond excited to play this. Unfortunately, I guess fortunately for a lot of people, this game was shadow dropped, so it came out that day, February 8th, but digitally, like digital only, which I'm a physical game collector, so I have to wait till like February 24th. But it's still a lot sooner than I expected, and I can't wait for it. So as we went on with some announcements, we had Professor Layton in the New World of Steam. Now, I've never really played the Professor Layton games, but I know a lot of people like it. So if you're a fan of the series, there's a new one announced, so that's pretty exciting. Oh, I need to find where I can play the other ones and give them a try, because I heard they're pretty good. And then we had Baten Kaitos, I think I'm pronouncing it right, 1 and 2 HD coming out on the Switch. Another GameCube remaster, deluxe, whatever you want to call it, coming out. And I can't wait. I loved Baten Kaitos. I know a lot of people might not know that game, but the gameplay for me, it was like a card-based combat kind of system. It was really fun. You build your own decks and everything, and it has a huge story. And the cards are really exclusive to like the gameplay. It's not like they're playing with cards. They're going and they're hitting each other, and it's just a really fun game. I think the pre-rendered backgrounds and everything's pretty. And I never played the second one, so I'm definitely gonna pick this up and have a lot to go through. So the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Wave 4 DLC got a little bit of a teaser, and they only showed one track, but what a track it is. It is Yoshi's Island, and it looks so good. It's a new track, and it's not a remake track, and it looks amazing. Like, I just love when they're doing these new tracks, and they're really putting work in for it. I feel like it just gets better as we go. But yeah, the track looks really cool. And they also are bringing back Birdo, who hasn't seen Mario Kart or been in a Mario Kart since Mario Kart Double Dash on the GameCube. So if anyone's been missing Birdo's coming back. And you can definitely expect me to do a video whenever that Wave 4 drops. It's coming out this spring. So we finally get to my main attraction, which is the new trailer for The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. Now, everyone was waiting for it, and they saved it for the end, which I think we all expected. The trailer starts out with storms going around, and you're kind of watching, and then you hear it. You hear Ganondorf talking, which I assume is Ganondorf. So you get to hear his voice actor, which I know some people are a little bit, they're not sure about the voice actor for him. I like it. He had me sold whenever he said, "Leave no survivors." I was so hyped. I couldn't believe it. I was watching reactions. I'm like, are people going to react to this? Because, oh my gosh, it's just everything I want. Just a dark Zelda. I think it's going with darker tones. Obviously, leave no survivors. Like, you're not saying that in like a Wind Waker. Or maybe you are, I don't know. But it just looks like it's going to have a darker undertones, like a darker theme, and I'm so excited for it. It looks like it's a situation like Ocarina of Time to Majora's Mask. Now you have Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. And people are worried about like it being too similar to Breath of the Wild, and Breath of the Wild was amazing. So you're gonna keep some of the good stuff. And they worked on this game for years with like all these assets available. So the fact they worked on it so long with this much, unless there was some crazy mess up in development, I think we're going to get a pretty unique game. And also, it's the biggest first party game on the Switch. I think it's like 18 gigabytes or something. So expect a big adventure with this one. Now, the trailer was pretty good. It doesn't really show you too much, but obviously you hear Ganondorf, you see more of the land, you see Link driving a nuts and bolts vehicle and a drone. So it's good times. And at the end of the trailer, you kind of see Link reaching for Zelda with his arm all messed up with malice, and it makes me wonder. It has a little scene where it looks like Ganondorf's like malice came out of him and attacks Link, and which is probably what messes up the Master Sword. And Link's arm just looks charred. And from the promotional images, they show Link with his prosthetic or whatever glowing arm, but then there's markings kind of following into his body from it. So my theory is that the malice infected Link's arm, and whatever green stuff's going on with his prosthetic arm is kind of sealing it or keeping it at bay. Now, what I'm leading into is I hope somehow in this game we get like a Shadow Link or A Malice Link. I don't know. It's just a theory, I think. Either way, the game looks amazing. I can't wait for it. So that's it for my highlights of the Nintendo Direct for February 8th. If there's anything I missed or anything that you thought was a big announcement that I didn't cover, please let me know in the comments and I'll kind of go back, I'll look at it. I'm sure I did it. These are just the announcements that spoke to me and that I thought were cool or important. So if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. If you didn't enjoy the video, please don't do those things. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.